going to sin. We are going to do things our own way and turn against God. After I know Jesus and he's working in my life and his Spirit is giving me strength and giving me a clean slate spiritually, there are some times in the Bible where Paul is writing a letter and he makes it sound like all of a sudden you don't have to sin anymore. Here's the difference. When I'm born, before I have the freedom that Jesus offers through the cross, I'm like a slave to sin. It's like sin has control over my body, so that my body isn't even my own. My body's like an instrument that rebels against God, and I don't even have to try. It just happens. Once I know Jesus, now I have a choice. I'm no longer a slave to sin. I'm more like I could become a servant to sin if I choose to rebel against God, or if I choose to allow God to work through me more and more, my desire to rebel gets kind of weeded out. You can think of it that way. So then, explain the one unforgivable sin while we're on the topic of sin. If you've read the Bible before, there's a part where Jesus is explaining to some people something, and he calls blasphemy of the Holy Spirit the unforgivable sin. And he says, basically, all other sin you can be forgiven for, but not this one. Now let me explain the context of this conversation that he's having so that you can understand. Is there a sin that I might accidentally commit? Actually, this is funny. Have you ever been worried that you committed the unforgivable sin? If that has ever happened to you, if you've been worried about that, raise your hand. Yes, anyone who's been in church, you hear about this and you're like, maybe I did, I don't know. Let me assure you that if you've ever worried that you've committed it, you have definitely not committed it. Here's what the unforgivable sin is. When Jesus is talking about this, he's talking to Pharisees. And these aren't just Pharisees who are kind of pushing his buttons and making him mad. The situation is, first, oh, good question. A Pharisee is a Jewish leader. Think of a Pharisee like a lawyer. Back in the day when Jesus was around, we're talking like just after the turn of the years, after 0. A Pharisee would be somebody who knows the Jewish law so well, he even has it memorized. He could recite verse after verse from the first 5 books of the Old Testament as we know it. He also could maybe even say that he's never broken a single law. So his behavior has been perfect. Jesus came and got